Today I've got 3 great new budget decks for you, all with 0 rares. But what I'm going to do today as well, in this video, I'm going to be giving you some suggestive upgrades for each of these budget builds. So these new decks are going to be great for new players, beginner players, or any MTG Arena player that just fancies playing something different to what they're usually playing. Hopefully with the first iteration of the decks, when they're 0 rare, you should be able to build them. And then if you have any of the suggested rares, you can add them in as you go, as you pick them up. If you really like the deck and you want to go full on with the deck and add the power of rares and mythics, then you can be doing that as well. Welcome to the channel. If it's your first time here, I'm Matt from Total MTG. We do lots of budget content here. We do lots of MTG Arena content, box openings, everything like that. So have something that you enjoy, please remember to hit that subscribe button. And I would really appreciate you if you can let me know what you think of the decks in the comments as well. So without further ado, let's get to today's first deck. So the first deck that I've put together, now we all know that mono black discard is definitely a thing at the moment. I did a budget version of this as well, and I've done a full-on version as well. So if that's something you're interested in, check out previous videos of that on the channel. This is a blinky discard deck. Now, I had an idea that I would like to add in white into the mono black discard, so to make it Orzhov. I think that adding a card, when you're keeping like the budget version, now this can be really upgraded as we'll see in a minute, but even just as a budget version, we're literally just splashing the white. And when you go for the upgrade version, you are definitely adding in more white to the deck. But as just is, we don't want to make it too hard on the land base. So, you know, we do have a mixture of plains, swamps, everything like that. And then we run in scoured barrens. As we're only running in this deck, only 6 white cards. So I feel like that should be more than enough to be able to, you know, play this deck and, you know, not miss out on the white cards. So Scroll Shift is exile up to 1 target artifact, creature, enchantment you control, then return it to the battlefield under its owner's control. You get to draw a card. 3 mana. It might seem a lot, but it's not really for this really cool common card, because the effects that we have, we really want. What I thought about was when we're trying to deplete opponent's hand, let's make sure that they literally have nothing in there. Do you know what I mean? So we have really good cards that we can blink with this. So it will have a lot of the main mono black discard theme here, but then we've added in a couple of new cards as well to this deck. So still having in Hopeless Nightmare, that'd be great to bounce in there, turn 1 coming in. Sometimes it's good that we can sack this, but if we want to blink it to make opponent discard a card, lose a life, I think that's pretty sweet as well. We then have, of course, Bandit's Talent. Now, this is not always the best one to blink, but it can also be as well. So if you're putting it on level 1, you can then obviously make opponent discard 2 cards unless they discard a non-land card. Blinking this still might be pretty cool. If you don't, you know, they've got more than enough cards in hand at the moment, so the level 1, 2, 2 and 3 are not going to be great at the moment, but blinking this is actually pretty cool. I've done it a few times. It really does help deplete opponents' hands. Now, looking at some of the new cards that I'm adding in here, Mephitic Trot. This draft, Mephitic, you know me, butchering cards' name, someone's going to correct me with it. Mephitic Draft is what I'm going to say this is called. Enters or put into the graveyard from the battlefield, draw a card, lose a life. So this is a sweet card to blink because we get to draw a card with Scroll Shift. So potentially we're exiling it comes back in, we get to draw 2 cards and lose a life. So that to me is real good value. Another good one to bounce is Visage of Dread. Enters, target opponent reveals their hand, choose an artifact or creature card, player then discards a card. You can then turn it into a creature if we craft with 2 creatures potentially as well, then it goes into a big 5/4, potentially you can do that, but we don't run a lot of creatures in this type version. 8 creatures in total, and those 8 creatures are the Deep Cavern Bat, looking at opponent's hand, just like a staple for mono black decks really. And then it's a 4 of Thought Stalker Warlock in this. This is a Lizard Warlock 2/2 with Menace. Enters, choose target opponent. If they lost life this turn, they reveal their hand. You choose an on-land card from it and they discard that card. Otherwise, they just discard a card. So this is a great creature to blink as well. Not so much Deep Cavern Bat, unless you've got something that really isn't going to affect the board state right, then you can potentially blink it, have a look, and then take something else back as well. So you can do it, but you know, you got to remember this is instant speed as well. So doing these at instant speed is pretty decent. We then have lots of removal. We got Cut Down in there as a couple of as well. We got Go for the Throat in there as a 3 of, and Destroy Evil because, you know, there is a certain enchantment that can wipe our boards at the moment. That 3 mana enchantment, the Lock, it really does Go to a lot of these low costing decks. Where are we? Enchantment, cost 3. The name of it is just completely. Where are you? Come on. Temporary lockdown. I knew it was lock. Yeah, this can obviously wipe a lot of our board. It can take our Hopeless Nightmares, Deep Caverns, Metamorphic's Visage. It's just a really important, naughty card for us, which it is for most mono black discard decks. So we've got a couple of Destroy Evil in there that can destroy that enchantment. And of course, the good thing about this is that we're going to get all these Enter the Battlefield effects when we get all ours back. So not too worried about that. I'm not too scared of it. If it does happen, it does happen. We just need to find our Destroy Evil if we can. But other than that, the deck runs deplete an opponent's hand and then hopefully building up the Bandit's talent when we've got them down to none and doing the level 2, pinging our opponent 2 life. Multiples on the field would be really good. And then if we get to level 4, we're just drawing the cards to find what we need and making sure we have the removal and drawing cards, bouncing stuff, drawing more cards, and that is the idea of Blinky Discard. And it's a deck that I've played and won with as a 0 rare deck, and it's been super fun playing something a bit different. Now, when we get to the sideboard, this isn't the sideboard, this is what the additions of what I think can be added into the deck. First card that I would definitely add in is a number of Guardian of Girapor. Is a really good rare. When this enters, X up to 1 target creature or artifact. Now we do have artifacts in there. Looks at hand, draws us cards, anything like that. Returns to the battlefield zone of control. And it's a 3/3 flyer as well, Angel, which I think is really good. Has the evasion and can definitely help with finishing some games out as well. So I think Guardian of Girapor is a card that can, definitely come into the deck. And you're probably looking at upgrading certain cards like, although the Thought Stalker Warlock is really good, but potentially you could get rid of maybe some of these if this isn't your bag. But I feel like this is a really sweet card and it blinks obviously in conjunction with the Girapor. The one card that I probably would make space for some of these is Ruthless Negotiation. I do like it, but given the opponent the choice is okay when we're playing in a budget. I do see this in some of the full versions because of the flashback, and then you get to draw a card as well, which is nice. But I feel like we've got other ways that we can do that in the deck as well. Salvation Swan is another cool card. Flash flying. When the Salvation Swan, another bird you control, enters, X up to 1 target creature card without flying, return it to the battlefield under its control with a flying counter on there. So we can attack, obviously, do damage, and when you're adding in other cards like Hostile Investigator in this and, adding some real power, when this enters, target opponent discards a card, blinking something like a Hostile Investigator will be really strong in the deck. And for me, these are the 3 cards that I would definitely like to put in there first for you, because they add on real theme of the deck, and I feel like, they turn it into a real blinking discard deck. Now, if you want to just add some extra power, Sheoldred is never going to be a bad card. It's played in every single type of black deck. Golgari, and this is that we've got another year, I think, of this as well. So this is a safe craft, and it's you're looking at some of these crafts that you want to be playing in multiple decks. Sheoldred is definitely one that you'd be playing in Golgari mid-range, mono black mid-range. This type of deck, mono black discard, you can probably craft this if you're a new player, beginner player. It is probably the best, and how it never got banned is beyond me. I was quite happy it didn't. I love playing with Sheoldred, and I just think it's just such a powerful card. I've got some other suggestions here of some good cards that just, upgrade Destroy Evil. You can swap for Get Lost because this does attack the enchantments as well. But when the lockdown comes in that we were talking about a minute ago, it doesn't really affect cards like this, Hostile Investigator, because they're 4 mana. The Swan as well is 4 mana as well. Liliana of the Veil is one that you potentially could add in. I put this in there as a maybe because it is a discard spell, 3 mana Planeswalker. But for me, I don't feel like the deck is big, but it definitely suits on theme with the deck. And I'd probably put this more in the mono black field. But I put it in there because maybe someone would say, Liliana of the Veil would go very well in this deck. As well as Alkazot. A single Alkazot is always good in the deck. I normally just run one of these in my mono black decks. But for me, the main antagonist that I would love for you to bring in first is the Guardian, the Salvation, and the Hostile. And then you would look to make room with, obviously, like I spoke about with Get Lost, swapping for Destroy Evil. Ruthless Negotiation will make space for one of those creatures as well. And then potentially Thought Stalker could go in replace for one of the other creatures. But if not, if you do like that, then you can make space with either the Mephitic Draught or Visage of Dread. I would probably get rid of Mephitic Draught just for that, because this still attacks hands. Well, this just draws us cards, and then adding in one of our creatures, because we do need the creatures to blink for the deck. But this is Blinky Discard, Orzhov Discard, with a blinking theme of really taking value of discarding opponent's hands. But let's get on to the second deck. So the second deck we play, which actually is a slightly different take on Mono Blue. This is Mono Blue Tempo. This is a very good beginner deck. It will get you, your fair amount of wins as is, and it's very easily upgraded, this deck. The full version of Mono Blue is a deck that's been around for quite a while, and some of the upgrades you will definitely know about. But this works slightly different and has some, cool other creatures in as well. So this is talking about tapping down opponents' creatures and everything like that. We have cards like Chrome Prowler. When this enters, tap target creature opponent control, and it has a flash effect. So this is for anyone that wants to play a control type deck. And you know me as a blue mage, I do love playing these sort of decks. So we're talking about just disrupting your opponent's board. And really, because Mono Blue doesn't have, like the removal, we rely on stuff like tapping down and bounce. This is what we do in this deck. Now, a new card that we got from Bloomburrow was Eddie Merc Crab. I mean, what a name. Flash as well. This spell casts 1 less to cast for each instant or sorcery card in your graveyard. Enters tapped if it's not your turn, but then you get to tap up to 2 target creatures. And we're acting like a tempo deck, so we're looking to get in and get some attacks in with this Mono Blue control tempo deck. Different to just full on control counter, although we do run a fair few counters in this deck. We have the same protagonist that is always in the Mono Blue decks, which is Tolarian Terror as well, that this can also cost 1 less to cast. So we can get this 5/5 with Ward 2 on there, and then we have another 5/5 to do beat downs as well. So big creatures on here that potentially can come down earlier. We do run 22 instants and 3 sorceries in this deck, so we have a lot. Now, as we're mono, we're running 22 lands, which I found like it's been fine for this deck, because it is a 3.1 average, which is quite high for the CMC. But for we're mono blue, so we don't have to worry about getting those other colours. We just got 22 islands in this deck, so it makes it pretty easy. Now, into the floor mumble. Bouncing target creature's opponent back to the hand, slowing opponents down so we can get through with our creatures. More of what we do here as well. And then another card that I've put in there is another card with flash. So we have a lot of cards with flash playing on opponent's turn. When this enters, target creature you control gains hexproof to enter turn, and it's a nice 2/1 flyer as well, so it has the evasion. And this can protect anything from the Chrome, obviously. Flashing in late for the Tolarians, the Eddie Mercs, we can protect it with our Escort if we don't have the counter magic like 2 negate we have in there as well. We've got Spellguire, 3 of these counter target spell, or we can surveil 2 and find the cards we need and then draw 2. So this deck has a lot of way of going through its deck as well. Sleight of hand in there for a great turn 1 play if we have it, and then curate as well, surveilling 2 and draw in a card as well. One of the coolest, especially for mono blue, is Long River's Pool. Great counter spell. You have to gift a card sometimes, but then it just counters any spell for double blue, which is, people who have been playing for a long time will know that counter spell, the OG counter spell, is really good. You obviously don't have to give a card with that, but for standard, uncommon, very sweet. Now we have a bit more counter magic in Phantom Interference that can make the 2/2 spirit, so adds a bit more evasion and more tempo creatures on there, and then a little bit more protection. We have a couple of Shore Up in there. +1/1 gains Hexproof until end of turn, and you get to untap it. So if you're attacking in with any of these big creatures or anything, you then get to untap it with a +1 creature on it, and then they can't remove it potentially because it's going to have Hexproof as well. So that is another cool trick with Escort protecting, and then Shore Up, we've got 5 protection spells in there, and then a lot of counter magic to balance that off as well. More card draw, Flow of Knowledge, great in mono blue decks. Draw a card for each island you control, discard 2 card, but potentially you could be drawing so many cards with this late on. It's just really cool, and the deck just works well, countering, drawing your cards and putting, big creatures down potentially early, tapping down, sending it back. It's a real naughty kind of deck. Upgrades. Very simple for the upgrades. You'll see this if you've been playing Arena for a while. Haughty Djinn just fits straight into the deck, which will probably be replaced for the Chrome Prowler. You would probably swap this straight back in. It's up to you. I mean, Fairy Mastermind is another one that I'm going to say can come in. Flash adds on theme with the deck that I've built here. Whenever opponent draws their second card of turn, you draw a card. So another one that could definitely come in. Spell Gaia is probably one of the you probably want to drop this down. You could probably keep one in the deck. Just balance your counter spells up a little bit, potentially with Phantom Interference, maybe drop into 2. Long River Pool, maybe drop into 2, because 3 steps ahead is just a really good counter spell that can come in. And then this will count target spell, create a copy of token artifacts. So you can copy your Djinns, anything like that, Fairy Masterminds. And one of the suggestions that I would think would be very good in the deck is Kite's Alarcenist. 2/3, enters for each player, choose up to 1 target artifact creature they control. For as long as this remains, it turns into like an artifact. So bit more tricksiness, evasion going in there. And with this, I would maybe drop a Murky Crab, or potentially, if you want to add in all of these creatures, maybe Murky Crab is the one that you do take out. But I think this deck works very well as is, and these are just some suggestions that you could add in. So if you have a couple of 3 steps ahead, I would definitely bring those in as good counter magic. And then the Haughty Djinn is always a good finisher. This just turns into a massive flyer, and I would probably make the space of the Chrome, taking that out and bringing 4 of them in, and maybe drop in one of your other counters, like Eddie Merc, like I said as well. But Mono Blue Tempo, this is a really different type of deck to start off with, but can transform into the Mono Blue that or definitely mixing up a part of it. With all these decks, if you want more, more suggestions from me for which to take out, just leave it in the comments, and I'll always get back to all my comments and sort of let and give you my thoughts on that as well. But it really does. I don't know what cards you have in your collection, but these are just some of the suggestions that I would say to take out and make the deck stronger. But let's get on to the third and final deck. So the third and final deck is Selesnya Toxic Poison deck. And this is a deck that I've not seen too much about at the moment, but it's still a very good, viable deck. This is the non-rare budget version, of course. Lots of basics in there, and then we choose to run the Heath in this, so it does 1 damage to target opponent. You could swap this for the life gain land if you have that, or just prefer that one instead. But we're doing poison here, so if your first time looking at this, you're a new player. Poison means you have to do 10 damage. Poison counter, a player with 10 or more poison counters loses the game, so this will be attacking, giving a poison counter opponent. And each creature that does that, obviously, has Toxic 1 or Toxic whatever, will be doing that to our opponents as well. So lots of low mana creatures. This is a 1.9 average with 22 lands, but we are 2 coloured in this. So although it's a low CMC, we still need 22 lands roughly as well. So the creatures on this, a lot of you will know, Crawling Chorus is a great 1-drop going in there. And then we have Duelist of Deep Faith that I've added in. So during your turn, it has First Strike, and it's a 2/2. Toxic 1, good having First Strike in our turn when we're attacking with this. So it actually turns into a pretty good beta as well. Just like Jawbone Duelist, this has Double Strike, Toxic 1. We have a lot of low mana creatures. Slaughter Singer coming onto the field. Whenever another creature you control with Toxic attacks, it gets +1/1 to end the turn, and this has Toxic 2. So even though we're trying to attack and doing the Toxic, we are doing a fair amount of damage to our opponents as well. This can build up, obviously. We've got Double Strike, so we're sort of hitting opponents from both ways. But obviously, Toxic is the way that we really want to win. Annex Sentry acts as removal as well. As long as our opponent's creature or artifact is mana of 3 or less, this is a great blocker as well against mono red if we can sustain, hold on against that. And then the final creature, which I really do love, is Flensing Raptor, flying Toxic 1, so it has that evasion to get over the top of our opponents. And when this enters, another target creature you control with Toxic gets +1/1 and flying. So if you're adding any of these onto the Jawbone, getting that Double Strike, giving it flying as well, Slaughter Stinger getting in and having flying, the flying evasion of this is brilliant. And Flensing Raptor is definitely a top card for this deck, and it's a common as well. So, I haven't seen this too much in the Toxic decks, but for this budget version, it's been absolutely brilliant. We then have Protection. We've got Overprotect from Bloomburrow. Gets +3/3, gains trample, hexproof and indestructible. Good against Wraths if anything's coming in, destroying all. And then, like I said, we're not just hitting over with the toxicity. If we can get the poison counters, sometimes I've won games been hitting the power as well. So just been hitting, doing as much damage as possible as well, and actually doing like winning the poison and the damage at the same time. So yeah, that's been pretty cool. And then Tyvar's Stands is another way to give a creature indestructible and hexproof for all that mass removal that is in Standard. We have Audacity, bit more trample to get over because we want to be getting these poison counters through. And then removal. So Case of the Gateway Express acts as a removal as well, and can give our creatures a little pump, a little +1/0 when we're attacking, because all we want to do is keep attacking in and getting those counters through. Destroy Evil. We get wiped out by Lockdown with this deck without a doubt, so having enchantment removal is very much needed. So Destroy Evil, this is best of 1 decks, obviously. This will destroy target enchantment and can deal with anything like a Sheoldred or anything big and nasty as well, if we do need it. Now, we do have quite a few creatures, so 24 creatures in this deck. So the Case of the Gateway potentially can also kill a fair amount of big creatures as well. So this can do a job as removal and keeping it clear, and it's coming in, keeping it clear, which is what it's all about, because you just need to get through with those counters. Now, the sideboard. Very easy to upgrade. First upgrades for this, for me, to make it more consistent without a doubt, is the lands. So if you can add in Brush Lands, 4 of these. If you've got Razor Verge Thickets, 4 of these can go in. Mirrex, 2 to 3 of these I would definitely bring in, because it makes the toxic tokens, which is what we need. And then a 4 of the Seed Core. So a lot, any amount you can put of these into your deck, what you've already got in your collection, will only make your deck better. So any of these lands, multiples, if you can, straight in to replace the basics, and then obviously replace the Heath as well. Creatures that you can add in. Skrilev acts as more protection, and the Venerated Rot Priest is just absolutely brilliant. So whenever a creature you control becomes a target a spell, target opponent gets a poison counter. Now, we've got Audacity in the deck, we've got Overprotect, we've got Tyvar's Stand, so we can protect it when they're trying to remove it and trigger those poison counters, which is what this deck is really good at. The same swap again. Destroy Evil for Get Lost. As you can see, if you're building multiples decks, you're going to get multiples of these rares that you can use in different decks. So you're getting value for these crafts. And then a couple more to think about. Skrilev's Hive, you see in some iterations of the deck, and you see in some not. You're going to have to make room for those sort of cards. So probably Duelist of the Deep Faith is one that is going to bite the dust. But Duelist I would swap if you can for this creature. Bloated Contaminator, 4/4 with Trample. Deals combat damage, you get to proliferate, and it has Toxic 1, but has the all-important trample and 4/4 stats above the 3 mana. So that would be my main suggestion, is taking your Duelist out and adding these in. But the lands are definitely the upgrade you want straight away. You want to be playing these spells. You don't really want to be, missing out on playing the turn 2, turn 3 plays. You want to be doing them, so these are really good for that. And for me, I would definitely put the Bloated Contaminator in as your first creature, although Venerated Rot Priest is super, super strong. So the choice of them two are definitely up to you. But that has been 3 new zero rare decks for you to look at, maybe craft and build, take them as far as you can go. You were definitely, in the previous videos with the budget videos, they've been so popular. Thank you for the support. We gained so many new subs, so hello to you. If you're still at the end, let me know in the comments. I really appreciate that. And if you want to go that bit extra further, you can become a Total MTG Patreon. And I give all these deck lists early from as little as the $3 tier. So you can do that. You can get all these and start playing. And obviously I do doc techs and help people with the decks on there and everything like that. So I appreciate all that support, but just literally watching the videos and subscribing is the best way to support me. So thank you very much for that. And if you go to your FNMs and you want to take one of these cool decks to your local FNM, check out my sponsors Card Market. You can get all of your card needs there. So please check them out in the links below. But anyway, you lot take care, and I'll see you on the next video.